Hello, and thanks for joining us again. This is Akwesi Opal with Sunlight Radio Online, and today on Couples Date Night we are talking about validation. Why is it important to validate your spouse, or is the need for validation a bad thing? And we've already established that there's nothing wrong in feeling the need to be validated. It's important that we as human beings know that we are loved, we're special, and validation is something that we need when issues come up. So if you're in a relationship where your spouse requires you to validate them based on an issue or something going on, it's important that we step outside ourselves to really listen. We've talked about listening, which is a key part of validation, and also our ability to really create the environment for our spouses to know that we are really there, we're really by their side, and we really connect with them on a deeper level. So we are going to move on, and again, if you are interested in contributing, you are welcome to send us a text at 240-772-1420. Thanks again for joining us, and we are going to move on. We talked the last time, before we went on our break, we talked about we having the ability not to dismiss the feelings of our spouse. So the next thing we're going to talk about is don't try to fix their feelings. So fixing their feelings is again similar to, dismissing their feelings. It's like doing things to end it quickly. So dismissing is usually very abrupt, saying things that will just change the topic or change the mood very quickly. But when it comes to fixing their feelings, we sometimes try to make people feel that we're trying to let them stop hurting, or stop their emotions, and while we are well intended, it usually doesn't help them feel better in the long term, and they may feel it if it is their fault for being made to feel that way or being made to feel unhappy. And what is important here is that when somebody goes through some emotional issues or an event happens, we as human beings want to play it out a little bit to really experience the pain or the emotion to the point where we convince ourselves that what happened wasn't right, and we all agree that what happened wasn't right or wasn't done to you in the right way, however you want to put that. But what's important is that the people around you also have to acknowledge that. It's very important that they also acknowledge that what was done to you wasn't right. Even if you have a different point of view, even if you see things differently, validation means you seeing things the way and also feeling the way the person, your spouse feels, and not just trying to fix that feeling or just saying things that will end it quickly so that you can move on to something else. Let's take our time to really validate the people we care about by making sure that we're listening, we're being purposeful, we're spending time to really go through the emotions with them. And it's interesting that, in trying to fix it or in trying to dismiss their feelings, the goal of that is to shorten it. But if you actually listen to them and validate them, that will actually shorten the process faster than you trying to fix it or to dismiss their emotions. So this is really important. Usually it's the things that we think will fix it or rather makes things worse. So let's avoid trying to fix people's feelings or the feelings of our spouse, and let's validate them, let's acknowledge them, let's go into the feelings of how they feel, and let's really be there with them. And once their cup is full of knowing that you are in there with him or her, the journey back is very, very quick and short in most cases. And it doesn't mean that you always expect it to be quick and short and we do things to speed up the process. But it's important that we take our time to really help our spouses heal and recover. You know, if you want to help, try listening to the whole story and validating their feelings along the way. You know, I know that sometimes we guys don't like to listen to every aspect of the story, but know that you're doing it for somebody you care about. You're doing it for your wife or your spouse, and it's important that even though you don't feel like doing that, let's do it. Let's sit through it. Let's listen to it. You know, an example we have from our resource today is saying that instead of saying you should let go of him, try saying things like, personally, I try to let go of people who don't want to be in my life and focus on those who matter. So, you know, you're not being very abrupt. You're not just saying things to just end it, but you're being more suggestive. You're being more cordial in your approach, you know. So this allows the listener to decide. You're giving him or her options as to how they want to approach. So the key here is making sure that we are not fixing the feelings of our spouses, but we are really listening and validating them as well. So, moving on, skip the unsolicited advice. So, unsolicited advice is, you know, all the advice you can give either with the goal of shortening it, fixing it, or dismissing their emotions. I mean, all the last three things that I've spoken about, they are all in a way connected, because the reason why a lot of us do this is just to make sure that, you know, we can get through it with it quickly, especially we guys. But, and I'm not saying every guy does this, but we have to make sure that we are taking those steps to really make sure that our spouse feels validated by not rushing through, by not giving advice just to make sure that we get through. Many times when people tell us about a problem, they just want to be heard. You know, feeling heard is one of the greatest things that can happen to us. You know, I've said time and over that the reason why sometimes children do things that, you know, they join the wrong group or they're in the wrong crowd making wrong decisions is because they want to feel heard. They want to feel that they matter. And sometimes if there's even a bad group out there making them feel special, all they want to do is to feel that they're being heard. You know, we have to let the people around us and the people we care about feel that they're being heard, their views are important, you know, what they say matter. And we are not just trying to give them advice just to move on to the next thing that we have to do. You know, before opening your mouth to say anything, just ignore them. Or look at the bright side. You know, ignoring is that ignore all the unsolicited advice that you have and think of the things that will help. Listen more closely to what they are saying and focus on empathizing with them. You know, that's the first step. And once they know you're in their corner, you know, their need to really connect with you will increase. You know, the need to process their emotions first is very, very important. If you want to help, first listen. After that, ask if you can help. So it's opening that door, asking for permission. Is there any way I can help? Or do you just want me to listen? You know, that's very important. If we are not sure, let's try asking. Are you coming to me for advice, or are you just here so that you can vent? That's one thing that my wife and I learned some time ago. So that we just say what we want, so that we can get it. I always say that sometimes if you ask for what you want, you'll get it. You know, so let's make sure that we are clear, because in some instances, all we want to do is to vent. Some instances, we need advice, or we want to be comforted, or we want to feel validated by our spouse or the people around us. So let's make sure that we're not giving advice prematurely. We're not trying to solve the problem or dismiss our spouse's feelings, but we're taking them into consideration because they do matter. They're very important important when it comes to situations like this. Let's think of ways by which we can validate our spouses. It goes so much a long way. I always say that these things will prevent a lot of conflict down the road. It will create a greater deep of bond and connection between the two of you. You know, it will give you more time to celebrate those good times because you made a little bit of time to validate your spouse by listening to them and making sure that what they were saying, you considered them more important and you didn't rush through their feelings or made them feel that their feelings didn't matter or their feelings were too childish. You know, we all have those feelings, and it's important that we take the right steps to validate our spouses. So, as we move on today, I want you to think of things that you can do to really validate your spouse. You probably are thinking to yourself that, you know, sometimes my wife gets upset and or my husband is quiet and I don't know why he's quiet. A lot of the resources we're providing is very generalized, and we agree with you on that. What's important is that you as an individual have to find a way of identifying the steps you need to take to really get to the place of validating your spouse. And with that, we're going to talk a little bit about that when we come back. Hello, thanks for coming back. Thanks for joining us today. This is Akwesi Opong coming to you on Sunlight Radio Online. We are so grateful that you made time in your day to join us today. We have been talking today about validation. Why is validation very important in our relationships? Why do we need it? We've talked about the fact that it's inherent in us to want the need to be validated. When we're not validated as human beings, it doesn't go so well with us, and we have that need. And it's because God himself validated us through his son Jesus Christ. And research has shown that couples who spend time and invest in opportunities to validate each other do very well. They spend most of their time in the happy zone than the sad and conflict zones, and we don't want to spend too much time there. So let's work on the skills of learning how to validate our spouse. And I also want to add that it's important that we learn how to validate ourselves. Marriage is made up of two people who work on themselves to improve themselves, improve their emotions, they improve their skills to become a better person themselves. So in molding yourself, in becoming a good husband or wife, let's work on ourselves. Let's validate ourselves as well. Let's say nice things to ourselves. Sometimes some of the self-talk we give to ourselves is so negative. If somebody says it, we'll be so upset because they said those things to us. But we do it to ourselves every day. Several times a day. We say things that puts us down. We discourage ourselves. We talk ourselves out of things that we're supposed to do. Let us come to the place of being able to become whole by learning self-validation. Self-validation is the understanding and knowing that you are accepted by God and you are good and you love who you are, no matter how you look or what you've achieved or wherever you are in life. You accept the way you are, because the truth of the matter is nobody is 100%. And we live in a society today that, there's so many ways that we can show outwardly that we're doing well, but deep down things are not going very well. So let's not use that yardstick as a way of measuring ourselves. Let's be kind to ourselves and not fall for the deception of feeling that we are below or we are not worth anything. There's so much that is going on that we can be grateful for, that can help us become great individuals. So a couple of things I want to share as we come to the close of our time today is to talk about how, things that you can do to validate yourself as an individual. And the first thing I can think of is encourage yourself. Learn how to encourage yourself. The Bible tells us about how David, when his own children had, his own son had come against him in war and had taken his property and his wives and had run away with it. And the Bible tells us that David encouraged himself in the Lord. It's a skill that we all have to learn how to do, because sometimes your spouse might not be available to do that for you, and we have to have the skill of knowing how to encourage ourselves, how to speak truth to yourself, how to speak things that will lift your soul up, will make you feel good. We have to also learn the skill of acknowledging our strengths. What strengths do you have? Our self-worth comes from the things that we are able to do, our abilities, our skills, and our strengths. So we have to know and acknowledge the things that we are good at. Let's not wait for somebody to tell us, even though somebody telling us has great value. Let's always remind ourselves who we are, what we are able to do, and what we do very well. Remind yourself of your success. There's a song that says, count your blessings, name them one by one, and you soon realize how good God has been to you. If you count your blessings, the fact that you are healthy, the fact that you have a job, the fact that you have a family, you have loved ones. There's just so much we can find that can help us really validate ourselves, and even the fact that you have somebody to share your life with. There's a quote that says that whatever you appreciate appreciates. So we have to learn the skill of really counting our blessings and seeing the things that are working. Your efforts, what are the things that you do well that you always seem to stand out? Whether at work, whether at home, in your community, in your church, the things that you do that stand out, those are your efforts, and you have to feel good about that fact that you are able to do that. And just to also point out, this is not about the kind of good that brings pride. I'm not saying we should be prideful, but this is talking about, gratitude, being grateful that we have all these things going well, we have accomplished things in life, we've seen some successes, or something happened and you were able to get through it. Those are things that we can focus on, and those are things that are going to help us really learn to self-validate and feel good about ourselves. We have to prioritize our needs. That's also another thing, a way we can validate ourselves. We shouldn't always, prioritize other people's needs over us, where sometimes you have friends who will call you and say, can you come do this for me? And you leave your own things that you have to do and time with your family, and you go do things for other people. The Bible says that we should love your neighbor as yourself, not more than yourself. So that alone is a violation of the rule. We have to make sure that if I need the time for myself, I have to give it to myself. and the people who are very close to me and not give it to another person. That is poor prioritization. When we do that, we're not validating ourselves. We're not saying that I'm important, I'm special, we don't see ourselves the way God sees us. And it's very important that we make that distinction of making sure that we prioritize ourselves. We take good care of ourselves, treating yourself with kindness. We have to be good to ourselves. Look ourselves in the mirror and say, oh, I am so good, and I'm going to be good to myself. I'm going to treat myself well. I'm going to take good care of myself. I'm going to make myself handsome, beautiful. I'm going to say nice things about myself. I'm going to think good thoughts about myself. The Bible says that as a man thinketh, so is he. So what are you thinking about yourself, as an individual? These are the things that help validate us. So if we are on the path of, negative self-talk or saying things that are not true just because we're having a bad day, it's definitely not going to do us any good. So let us put ourselves on the path to making sure that we're treating ourselves well, we're being kind to ourselves, and we're prioritizing our needs, Now, another thing also is noticing and accepting your own feelings. Are you being aware of your own feelings? How do you feel? There's a wonderful book we read. I think there's a couple. Their last name is Malkovich. They wrote this book about the title of it is A Lifestyle. It talks about how you love, and different people have different ways of loving. I know we all are familiar with 5 love languages, but this is your style of loving. The style is a different style that you have of loving. And it talks about how we have to be able to notice our feeling. Becoming aware of how you feel is very important. Knowing that I'm sad, I'm happy, I'm upset, I feel discouraged. Being aware of that feeling is also a skill that we have to become good at. Because once you know and you're able to decode your own feeling, you know the things you need to do to get out of it. But most too often, a lot of us cannot tell how we're feeling, or we don't even know what's going on with us. It's a skill that we need to learn. And the way we know or we understand or become aware of our feelings is by acknowledging them. And by when you have a feeling, ask yourself, how do I really feel? And give a name to it. If you're able to give a name to your feelings, you'll be able to notice them and give a name to them and accept those feelings too. Sometimes feeling bad is not always bad, but it allows you to look within yourself and really take steps to not just solve that problem that's making you feel bad, but it allows you to get your life back in doing things that will help you as a human being. Saying nice things to yourself. I think I commented on that earlier, that we have to be nice to ourselves by the things we say, the things we think, the actions we take. We have to make sure that we treat our bodies well. I always say this, that some of the easiest, simple things you can do is to sleep. Sleep alone, offers you so much rest and relaxation. There's a quote I heard from a pastor, I think it was Joel Osteen. He said this some time ago, that sometimes the most spiritual thing you can do is to sleep. Sleeping will do you so much good than preaching a sermon or doing those big things that we think are spiritual. But sleep will do so much good to you. So let's take care of ourselves. That's another way of validating yourself as a human being, and being nice to yourself as well. Accepting our limitations. We all have limitations. We all have things we can do very well. We all have things that we are not proud of. And we have to accept them as it is, that, I do have limitations. This is something I know I cannot do. We're just being true to ourselves. And when we accept our limitation, what it allows us to do is to find a way of overcoming that limitation by learning, by acquiring new skills, by seeking counsel or advice or mentorship. There are ways, but the first step is making sure that we accept and we acknowledge the fact that we have some form of limitation. We have flaws. We make mistakes. Let's not sweep those under the rug. Let's be aware that it's a human experience, and all these things play into it to make us that person who is whole. And being whole doesn't mean that you don't make mistakes. You will still make mistakes, but you know that every time you make a mistake, you know the steps to take to get out of it and bring yourself to a place where you feel validated, you feel you're a whole person, and you have the strength and energy to also validate the people you care about, especially your spouse, because there'll be times where you will have to be strong so that you can be there for your spouse. Thank you so much for joining us today. Again, my name is Akwesi Opon. We're so happy that you made time to learn about validation today. Now go out there and validate the people you care about. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you again next week.